Welcome to Momma-sota, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the beautiful mess of motherhood. I'm your host, Monica Eichman, and I'm here to keep it real. In a world that changes by the minute, parenting can often feel like an uphill battle. We all want what's best for our children, but what that best looks like varies for every one of us. Momma-sota is your passport to the unfiltered, unapologetic world of mommy. No perfectly edited snapshots or unattainable ideals here. We're here to share the ups and downs, the triumphs and tantrums, the mess and the beauty of being a mom. Join me as we explore the raw and authentic side of parenting. This is your safe space to vent, laugh, and learn as we navigate the unpredictable journey of raising strong, capable, and independent children for the future. Hey mamas, welcome to today's episode of Momma-sota. It's me, your host, Monica Eichman. I am a stay-at-home mom of 3, ages 7, 4.5, and 18 months. With the varying age ranges, finding a balance between independent play, adult and child interaction, and the overall flow of daily activities can be a bit tricky. In today's society, with so much focus on reaching the next learning milestone, test scores, and the world of gifted programs, there can be a lot of pressure and emphasis placed on parents to focus on academic achievement. While academics are definitely important, at what cost are we placing traditional learning above all else? Joining us today is special guest Maddie Johnson. She is a mama of 3 as well, and also a licensed marriage and family therapist and registered art therapist. Welcome, Maddie, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I definitely want to put some focus on something you said in your introductory bio in relationship to childhood creativity and that loss in adulthood. But before we get kind of going down that, tell us some more about you, your background, and your family structure.
Yeah, so I'm a mom of 3 kids. I have a set of twins that are 5 years old. They just turned 5, and a 2.5-year-old at home. So life is quite busy for me. But I also am a working mom. I work part-time in my private practice, which is called Heart Space Therapy. And then recently, within the last year, have opened a kind of a brick and mortar art studio. So I office out of there. I see my clients out of the art studio. And then I also have Heart Space, which is the art studio, where I offer different workshops for creativity and connection and kind of various wellness opportunities.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So to get back to kind of what I was referencing in your bio, I'm just going to kind of quote it here. It said, "Kids are so good at being creative and free, and we are taught out of that into adulthood, which I think is more harmful than helpful." Can you expand on that thought there?
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of see it. So I offer this one workshop called Little Create, which is for parents and their little ones. I usually started at like walking age all the way up to 5. But you see it with little ones. Like, they're so curious. They don't really care. They don't have inhibition. They just want to make and create. They want to mix colors. They want to be playful. Even when they're drawing, like, they don't care if it doesn't look like a truck or a flower. To them, it is beautiful and wonderful. And so that freedom is something that, as we grow and age into adulthood, and especially, in young kids in elementary school and high school, we're taught out of that. We're taught out of like trusting our gut and just allowing ourselves to be playful and to be curious. And so the workshops that I offer just try to bring people back to that. And honestly, Little Create is, the parents are coming in the room, and all of my Create workshops have parents. It's because I think when parents can engage with that playfulness, they can remember it within themselves and then give themselves a little bit of freedom to play. And that just, all it does is help with burnout. It helps with, minimizing stress, and can just be a really...
I'm saying hi right now.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Yes. What is it, baby, that you need to tell me right now? All things. Okay. All right. Sorry about this, man.
Oh gosh, it's okay. I know it all too well.
I would say there we go. The premise of Momma-sota, the real side of things. We don't have someone picture perfect all the time as I'm trying to record.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I hear you.
So when you were mentioning that flow can happen more naturally when you have the parent or the mom engaging in the art and creativity too, and kind of returning to that level of fun and that childhood that, like you said, where we lose into adulthood. Outside of being in the class in the studio, what would be kind of some tips just like at home? What are common things that we're doing currently that are leading to that loss of creativity?
Yeah. Well, I think, as a parent myself, you're so focused on, the schedule and making sure that your kids are, listening, following directions, that like you have something for them to be like fully engaged in. And we're kind of, I think as a mom, I just feel like I'm constantly wanting to make sure that whatever is going on is like flowing well and like things are clean and my kids look presentable or like stuff like that. And so I think on a day-to-day life, everyday life, I think there's so many simple things we can do. Like when it comes to being at home with our kids, if our kids like spill Cheerios all over, you know, part of engaging with our creativity is like, okay, we could tell them directly, like, well, you made a mess, now you clean it up. Or we can engage with them and be like, oh my gosh, a waterfall. Let's clean up the waterfall like super fast, and make it a game and be playful in that. And all that does is offer a connection. Like spills happen, but when we're under stress, spills feel like, as a parent, we're like, oh my gosh, did you knock that over intentionally? Like sometimes that anger, like the wanting things to be, clean, or I don't know, just kids to be behaving well. Like sometimes that takes precedent over just the connection part. So I try and, when I'm working with my clients too, and I work with a lot of moms, like I try and help us think about ways that we can just slow down. Our kids' world is so small and it is directly with you and it's directly in the moment. And we are adults, we move really fast and kids can't really keep up with that. And so if we expect them to keep up, we're going to have all of these really difficult interactions. And so it's kind of, I think engaging with creativity with our kids is a slowing down process. It's just like being in it with them. And like I said, like with behaviors, you making games out of it or, being playful with it, doing stuff alongside them, all it does is teach connection and safety and grounding. And from there, they're going to have a little bit more confidence to learn different skills. And then for us too, I think it's like a freedom. If we don't feel so rushed, we can actually feel grounded and connected with our own kid. And that is going to help us feel really good. But if we're focused on the fast-paced nature of life, like we're just never going to enjoy our children.
That makes me think of, in just one of my last episode recordings with the mom, we were talking about creativity specifically in like nature play. And one of the big chords that struck with me and that I had mentioned is needing to let go of some of that, the control, and really think about the why behind those decisions. And when you were going through some of what you were just saying, you mentioned making sure our kids look presentable. And instantly that popped in my head is my 4.5-year-old. She's been getting herself ready and dressed in the morning since she was about 3. And she comes downstairs sometimes in the most wild outfits. She'll have a striped bottom that has 18 different colors. And then she'll have on a floral top that has 18 colors as well, but not a single one of them even is the color in the bottom. I don't know how that happens. And it took a little while for me. And I have to think about like, where are we going and what are we doing? Are we going to the library today and we're having fun and playing? Yes. Do I look at her and be like, wow, I hope people don't think I dressed her? Maybe. But, does it matter the same as if it's, I want to go get, these picture perfect Easter pictures done, then I can, take the control and say, this is what we're wearing for now. So it's finding those moments, like you said. Okay. Thank you. But along with that too, I think, like you said, just also with the schedules and the day-to-day. And I know that's it's like that push-pull balance that we talk about how schedule and routine is so important. But I think sometimes we take that a little bit too far and get lost in that meaning that every minute and every moment of the day has to be planned out.
Right.
So where would you tell moms to balance that?
Well, right. Well, and like the essence of creativity, like what it is actually is just doing something new, doing something outside of habit, doing something outside of like what you normally do. And so, yeah, like letting your kid wear two different colored socks to school, like my son did today. One is like a knee high sock, and the other one is like an ankle sock. And he was like, I'm going to rock this. Okay, great. But like letting them do those things that are new, unexpected, it just teaches them that like the world is their oyster, right? Like they can kind of take this in any way that they want, and that you as a parent support them, that you as a parent are that you believe in them, and ultimately like that is going to bring confidence to them. But yeah, like creativity is really, it's doing anything new, it's doing anything unexpected. And so like while we do have to have schedules, and while we do have to have somewhat of a routine in terms of, kids love structure, kids love to know what to expect. How do we like incorporate just moments or like little things that allow us to try something different, even if it's uncomfortable, and to lean into that because it's going to be safe, right? And like we have to lead that charge for our kids, and we have to model that for them. And so I love the creative process for that, and like painting and getting really messy in my studio, because I think sometimes if kids notice their parents are nervous about it, then they're going to be nervous about it. But if our parents are confident, we're going to feel confident. And so like on like a microcosm level, it just allows parents that opportunity to be like, okay, we might be going to do something new today. Like we might be going on like a road trip that we haven't gone on before. And I'm nervous, but if I can be confident, my kids are going to be confident that this is going to be a great trip,
I love that we're talking about confidence, because I think sometimes, especially like my oldest son is very hard on himself when it comes to different things with sports or different things with school and academics. And we think like, I've always told him, good job, or you're doing great. Where is this like lack of confidence coming from? And I think, like you said, and with my first, like I'm still learning with my third, but definitely was learning with my first, is that confidence is not all built on what we think in our heads as success. But maybe I
Right.
was the mom that said, go back upstairs and change, those socks don't match.
Right.
And so just, realizing that there's so many different areas in their mind, especially at that young age, where that confidence is being built and that structure.
Right. And again, like I empathize with so many parents because, in the middle of winter in Minnesota, you're not going to want to send your daughter out in like a little princess dress, right? So you want to obviously encourage the creativity, encourage the fun, okay, we're going to wear something wild. But I always come back to like, is this safe? And also like, are they going to be standing outside for a super long time in this princess dress? Like, yeah, they're going to have recess, but are they going to be wearing snow pants? Yes. Okay, well, then I'm going to bring leggings, because at some point maybe she'll put them on. Or the teachers will be like, okay, you got to wear leggings underneath your princess dress when we go outside today. But, there is a safety component when it comes to like letting kids choose whatever they want. And then sometimes you do have to get into those battles. But I think if it's, to your point, like, are we going to the library? Okay, well, who cares if we're wearing something that's kind of nutty? We're in the library. It's like the best place to do it, because it's quiet, it's safe, we're all about, exploring and reading and expanding our mind. And so that's the best place to try it out. But yeah, I think as parents, we can kind of get stuck in some of those moments of perfectionism almost, it feels like. Yeah.
Definitely. I was going to say, just finding, yeah, the space where I can let go of control, and even continuing, like you said, that question of why is another one. And is the why because it's my own head and own control getting in the way, or is the why an actual safety, like you said, issue?
Right.
And kind of rolling with, just answering those questions to ourselves, I think can help us navigate those, situations.
Yeah, but also too, like sometimes asking that question is really a hard thing to do if we're overwhelmed in the moment. If we have like kids running around, spills left and right, messes everywhere, like as parents, our level of grounding is probably, or like our tolerance level is going to be a lot lower. So like, can we even access that question of like, is this a safety issue, or like, are we just going to let her, be free today, But sometimes even that is hard for parents. And so I think making sure that we are putting ourselves first and are taking care of our own needs so that we can feel grounded and able to access like a moment to step back and answer that question, even if it's as simple as like my kid wants another set of, wants another bag of fruit snacks and my immediate reaction is to yell or whatever. It's probably because I'm really stressed out, but like, can I just take a deep breath and be like, oh, wow, I know you really are hungry for fruit snacks again and they're so delicious, but we're going to have dinner soon or whatever. But, taking that moment can be really hard when we're overwhelmed.
I like that you bring that up because I think sometimes when we're talking about, these recommendations or these great steps or these ideas or how we handle things, or we see like this snippet on Facebook of, in this situation, do this. I think we get stuck thinking that these moms or parents are capable of doing that every single time. And
Right.
so if we do, like you said, yell or don't handle situations the best, then we get down on ourselves that why can't we be like this mom that I saw on Facebook? And so I love that realness that you're bringing out of, saying, yes, this is the suggestion, this is the recommendation, but it doesn't happen every time, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have to have grace for ourselves because we're humans too, and we're learning just along with them,
So how would you say when we're not necessarily dealing with like fostering that creativity in our children and coming back to play, but noticing just in our own adult life, if we're listening and we're saying, even within myself, I've lost this, how would you kind of direct to incorporate that into our lives outside of our children?
I think the best way to do that is kind of like what I said earlier, was like creativity is really just doing anything that's a little bit outside of your norm. So even if that means like driving home from work a different way, or that's a bit more scenic, or instead of driving straight home, you pull over and you sit at a park and you just, take in all the sounds and sights, or you try out a new form of exercise, or you try a new recipe, something that you've been wanting to try and make or that you really love. But it's really just doing anything that's a little bit outside of your norm, because I think, when we're really heightened with stress and when we're really overwhelmed, we seek control to make ourselves feel better. We don't allow avenue for uncertainty or new things. And when we don't do that, we don't show ourselves internally that we can handle things, that we can do it and it's not as difficult, or we don't give ourselves like the capacity to just lean into relaxation. And so I always challenge parents with just do one thing a little bit differently, and I give that example of like pull over and just park in a park and hang out for just 10 minutes. Give yourself 15 minutes before you walk into the noise of your home life, Or if you're with your kids and you can't leave, turn on a song that you love, not Baby Shark or, any of those other ones that my kids absolutely love too. Or a Disney song or Elsa, like don't turn that on. Like turn on something that you want and show them how much you love it. So like let yourself dance, let yourself take up space. Let it be a little bit loud, because when that type of energy is really contagious. And then obviously too, I do art in my free time. And so I always encourage people, everybody's an artist. Everybody has the capacity to make art. And if you were to give yourself, a little bit of time just to doodle or draw or watercolor, paint, whatever it might be, even knitting or something repetitive in that way, learning a new craft, I think can be incredibly helpful because it just activates a different part of our brain. And what that does is it's caused like a whole physiological, neurological response that helps us to regulate and calm. And if we're more calm, we're much more available for our kids,
I want to emphasize, because you said it, this is probably the second or third time you said it, but I didn't, even myself, like, it didn't click the same until I heard it the second or third time here. So I want everyone to hear it again, is you're saying creativity is really trying something different or new, or doing something different or new.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so often we hear the word creativity and we do automatically jump to art or drawing or painting.
Yep.
And then, like you said, we instantly are like, oh, I can't draw. Or, you know, like if that's not kind of where our brain clicks.
Right.
And so I love that, like, your first 5 examples before you said anything about art was a new recipe, stopping at the park, listening to a different song. I think sometimes we get these definitions in our brain and we get really stuck on broadening that or finding another area.
Well, right. And then I think too, like the buzzword of creativity, it feels like a luxury for a lot of people. Like, oh, I can't do that. That's for only those types of people, or like people that identify as artists. And I really want to fight against that, because the creative experience is, yes, it's not just fine arts. It's really just allowing yourself to be a bit uncomfortable and do something new. But then, you know, I obviously love the creative experience for that, because I think it does have a lot of science and research behind that process and the benefits of it. But no, I don't ever want, and I think creativity does have that tendency to be kind of a buzz term that people go to and they're like, oh, this is a luxury for only artists. But no, creativity really is more than that. There's so much to it. Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that, because I think even just yesterday with my son was playing football, and I was talking in these terms that you're saying. He was, you know, I was telling him, like, I was talking to my husband because my son was on the field, but I was like, he has these plays and he runs to where he's supposed to be, and then he gets stuck and he doesn't do anything outside of that. And exactly what I was referring to is he wasn't being creative on the field. So I had this thought process, and even still wasn't connecting the dot that's what I'm talking about is creativity.
Oh my gosh, right? Like, so imagine if you guys were just to go outside and like you and your husband like did a play with him outside, and like, but say like, okay, you guys can make up your own play and we're going to do it out here. But you can't do what you normally do on the field. You got to do it differently because it's mom and dad here, you know? And like giving him that experience of it being playful, because so much of like the pressure, especially when it comes to sports too, for kids, it's like, there's a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure to perform. There's a lot of, they get really down on themselves, and then that doesn't lead to creativity. It leads to control and freezing for a lot of athletes. So I think giving opportunities to be playful, it opens up those avenues that he could do that then on the field, right? It's just like it's like a practice experience.
Yeah, I think like you said, we get stuck there with, and you hear it from all the parents, myself included. You know, you're like yelling at them like it's like you think it's a video game joystick, like run here, turn there, pass here. I'm like, well, just go home and play FIFA with your PlayStation. But when they're on the field, like that's, especially in a game setting, especially, is like, that's not the time so much to be giving them that set direction. Like that's during practice, and then the game time is that time to implement what they've learned, and also work through that creative process. So we're getting in the way.
Well, you know what it is? Honestly, okay, so this just came up for me as we were talking, was what it is it's a practice of, and I started really young with Little Create, but it's a practice of supporting your kid to trust their gut, and that whatever they're doing, trusting their gut is okay. You know, and I think that we, and schools, and I think it's an inadvertent thing, but I think sometimes in adulthood too, we lose the idea that we can trust our own gut sometimes, because we have to go by certain rules or go by certain standards, right? Which is normal, and of course, but at the same time, we still need to remember that our gut is our gut. It is part of our body, and it's telling us something, and we need to trust that. And so the experiences that I have in the studio, and what I try and encourage with my clients is really try and create opportunities where you are supporting them and trusting their gut, so that when they are on the field, they can say, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to do this play, but I'm just going to do it slightly different. I'm going to trust my gut on this, and maybe something good would come out of it, you know? Or at school, I'm going to trust my gut, and I'm going to answer this question instead of that question, or whatever it is. But it is like, it's like a practice, and we have to, as parents, support them and honestly practice it ourselves.
Right. That's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
That reminds me when you're saying, yeah, listen to your gut and trust your gut was another piece that I've talked about with another mom, independent play. And I hear and see so often, again, like I said, on social media, the question or the mom saying, how do I get my kid to play independently? They seem to need me all of the time. And I think kind of what you're touching on is already what we're seeing is they are losing that into adulthood. And it sounds like they're losing that even in childhood. And that really it's because that independent play is gone because that creativity is already being lost.
Well, and I think there's so much about, messiness and having things. Yeah, I think I just keep coming to messiness because I think that prohibits a lot of parents from engaging in creativity with their kids is because it gets messy. And the messiness is about 3/4 of the time spent is cleaning up the messiness. But there's something about that, 1/4 of the time that they're in it that is so incredibly beneficial for their brain and for their body and for their relational experience that it's worth it. But I think for independent play, we have to be okay that things are going to get really messy or disorganized, or toys are going to end up in really random places that you would never expect. And you have to put them back probably 12 times over before the week is out. But independent play is being okay with that, right? And sometimes that can just be really hard because you want things to look a certain way, or you have to make sure that you want the house to be clean when you get home from work, or all those different things, which I agree with and I would need too. But also having some flexibility that for kids it does mean that a messy house is actually like a happy house.
I think, yes, we find again that mess piece. So much of this just brings me back to, and why I wanted to do Momma-sota really is that social media influence.
Yeah.
The clean, and to me there's different types, different parts of cleanliness and clean. And having the
Right.
toys out doesn't mean your house isn't clean. There's just embracing, like you said, the mess. And for me, I'm still very much a control freak, and so I'm going to put myself out here right now. One that I'm don't think I'll ever be able to let go of is my kids still are not allowed to mix Play-Doh colors.
You have to come to one of my workshops then.
I know. It's one that, like, in my heart, every time I'm like, just let it be okay, and I haven't been able to jump that hurdle yet.
Yeah.
But for me, in order to allow the mess and allow the creativity, I have had to be more intentional, I guess, in saying this is the activity we're going to do, as let's just say, Play-Doh. And so I'm letting go pieces of control where it doesn't necessarily have to be on the table, because that's where I started, is like, you are in your chair on the table. It can be on the kitchen floor now, but I still, it's still not going anywhere where there's carpet. We're still gonna, if you want to play on the floor, then like my rule still is then we're going to sweep the floor first, because I don't want all your food crumbs in your Play-Doh. So it's like I've let go pieces, but it's finding that if I can have that rule, I guess, kind of in place ahead of time, and my kids know what to expect, then there's still that space for, the rest I can let go of, I guess.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think, first of all, Play-Doh is so easy to make at home that you could make a batch that they could intentionally mix. And then you already know it in your head, like, this is for you guys to mix up, right? Like, it's so easy to make. And it's only, what, 4 ingredients? Water, flour, cream of tartar, salt, and like vegetable oil. And food coloring. So, okay, wait, that's like 7. But still, it's so easy to make. It's so easy to make. And I think in that experience, like, and you're giving the parameters, right, which is wonderful. And all kids need parameters and boundaries. And within those parameters, we have to let whatever happen, And if we do and we like celebrate them experimenting and playing and being a little bit curious, like that, all that does is they see you celebrating that and they say, okay, I can be curious. I can be playful, and playfulness and curiosity, that is your intuition. That is your gut. And so if you celebrate them being playful, them being curious, then you're celebrating them listening to their gut. And that right there is just like a small little experience for them, but it for kids it makes a big difference, right? And it plays out in different areas of your life. So yeah, I think you're right. You kind of do have to have, you have to set expectations and boundaries around what you're doing, and that's helpful for us, and then also be okay with what happens within those bounds too.
What you just mentioned, I think that what we see as such a little experience or something so minute is really, like you said, a big experience for them. I think that's something that we forget a
Right.
lot. Even just thinking like, I'm sitting down right now. I don't think about sitting down at this point in
Mm-hmm.
my life. It just comes naturally. I can sit. But when our child was between the ages of 3 to 6 to 9 months,
Mm-hmm.
sitting was something that we're teaching them and training them to do, and they have to put effort into.
Mm-hmm. Such a good example. Yes.
But we forget, like I said, I think when we're thinking about milestones like that in infancy and early childhood and toddlers,
Right.
I think we're still focusing and noticing those little things. But I do think as they get to hit those ages of, 3 to 7 to as they continue to grow, we, I know for myself, I guess I'm saying we, but I know for myself that if I don't consciously think about it, like we're just talking, I do forget that those are still big moments for them.
Right. Right. Yeah. I know it is hard as a parent to remember that their world is is a lot smaller and big at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, it's a wild experience, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even like I said, I prepare for this. I know what we're talking about. I look into things a little bit, but even as we discuss them and like I think about it, I have my own like remember this. And again, like you said, it's hard in the moment sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
So being able to step back out of that and draw from some of those moments, and even just think like, okay, I'm going to go intentional again. I'm going
Right.
to go make some Play-Doh, and I am going to allow, the mess or the mixing, just thinking about all of those things before jumping into whatever activity it
Mm-hmm.
is. Just thinking, what what am I going to do differently
Mm-hmm.
to allow my child to embrace that curiosity and to explore and be creative.
Right. Yeah, and thinking about it too, as far as like everything is practice. Like let's just practice this. Let's just try this out. Like, even if you have a 7-year-old and you have an 18-month-old, right? So you have two very different age groups going, and like just as much as you were practicing with your 7-year-old, your 18-month-old is totally different probably than your 7-year-old, and you have to attend to them, and that's a whole nother level of practice. Like we're still always practicing as parents, and so every little experience that we try and set up or engage with them on, we're allowing them to practice and we are practicing too. And just like keeping that in mind, like this doesn't have to be, I don't have to know. I don't know, have to know what's going to happen or know how it's going to go, but we're just going to practice and see what happens, you know, giving ourselves that like grace period too.
I love that you say like it's practice for them and it's also practice for us, and
Mm-hmm.
being okay with not knowing. I
Mm-hmm.
think so often as the parent, especially in the face of our child, we
Mm-hmm.
feel like we need to have the answer to everything, but accepting that if they ask us a question, or even if it's like, what's going to happen if I do this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah, exactly. I say a lot to my kids, let me think about that. I need a minute to think about that. My daughter, who's 2.5, no more thinking about it. No more. Like she'll be laying in bed, and we'll have put her to bed like 45 minutes prior to that, and she's calling me in, and she's like, I just need one more sip of water. I just need one more snack, and I'll say to her, let me think about it. And then obviously she falls asleep, but
They're right.
She's gotten to the point now where she's like, no more thinking, just get me a snack.
Like, I know where this is going, Mom.
Yeah, she's figured me out. But I mean, giving yourself a moment, we're so like our kids are in our face so much sometimes that like we feel like we have to have like a quick answer but you can give yourself that moment to think about it or I don't know or not know and we're going to figure this out together and that's what we'll do and also too modeling like not knowing is and being okay and not knowing is another big experience for them. It teaches them that they can go into something not knowing and that it will probably be okay, and we're a little nervous and that's okay too, but we're still going to do it. So like everything is practice for other things. So
I love the phrase where and I am going to definitely implement that of just saying, let me think about that.
mm-hmm.
Because I even find myself often when my children do something that I'm like, what, why? And I'll say to them, what were you thinking?
Mm-hmm.
And, but then I also expect an answer like immediately.
Right.
And then just remembering, like you said, I don't always have an answer. And so if I can say, let me think about that, that's also modeling to my child, like, yes, let's think through things. I'm expecting them to think about it, but I'm not giving them the opportunity to think about it.
Right. I know. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good little trick for sure.
So outside of the like Little Create, that's right, the name of
Yeah, one of the workshops.
one of the workshops.
Mm-hmm.
Just in your own space, I know you're also an artist, but outside of that, when it's not like you're what you're doing for work, even though you still get to implement that,
Mm-hmm.
how are you bringing like that creativity into just kind of like your own personal space?
I would have to say, if I'm being honest, it's hard. It's really hard sometimes because, you get home and you're like, oh, but I could do laundry. Just get that one load out of the way. So I have found that I have to be really intentional, but I practice yoga and I often go on walks and I'm big into music. So I try and listen to something that I haven't listened to before, like listen to a song by an artist that I like just to kind of switch it up. And then, I feel like I have to be pretty intentional about carving out time for me to be in a headspace where I can feel creative. And even if I don't feel creative, that I have time to just be with my supplies and see where it takes me. I do a lot of journaling, creative journaling. So it's a mix of writing and kind of just like collage, mixed media. And that I love because I'm not making art to hang up on my wall, which is a lot of what art therapy is about, is really just allowing the process to be healing. So I do a lot in my free time, which is really nice. But like I said, as a mom, it's hard. You could clean the living room and a clean space feels really good, or you could go and make art. And I end up choosing let's clean the living room first, which is not helpful. but I fall into it and then I have to be really intentional of like carving out specific time for that. So yeah, I kind of do a mix of things.
So with all that, I kind of think that's the perfect place to land here and just reminding everyone listening here kind of some key takeaways as far as like defining creativity does not mean that it has to be pen, pencil, paintbrush type situation. That
Right.
creativity is really just, like you had said, doing something different or doing something in a different way. And then in that, which also seems counterintuitive, but we're talking about being intentional, but being intentional in allowing creativity to have a space.
Right. Yeah, like practice choosing yourself, which is a lot of what I tend to do. Like I offer a workshop for moms too, that it's a creative workshop. And I literally say to them, I give a round of applause because everybody practiced choosing themselves today. And we do have to do that. We choose our kids, we choose our partners so much of the time, and we don't choose ourselves. And so really being intentional about choosing yourself is kind of a huge, I hope, a takeaway from today too.
Yeah, well, I love that. Maddie, thank you again so much for sharing your time with us.
Yeah.
And everybody listening, just finding that, that creativity both for your children and for yourself going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah. And until then, just keep doing your best.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for joining me on this roller coaster of momming right here on Momma-sota. I hope you enjoyed our candid conversation about all things parenting, where perfection is left at the door and real life takes center stage. Stay tuned for more heartfelt, unfiltered discussions in the next episode. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review Momma-sota on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us. Until next time, this is Monica Eichmann signing off. Keep rocking that mom life, and remember, you've got this.